Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Alita, and today we were gonna talk about research ethics. And the first, we're gonna talk about research ethics. What is research ethics? And the second, the four principles of research ethics, and then terminologies of research ethics. And then we're gonna talk about example of ethical practices in quantitative and qualitative research, example of unethical practices that should be avoided, and the last is we're gonna talk about informed consent and consent form. So first we're gonna talk about what is research ethics. If we're talking about ethics, it's about responsibility. So what is research ethics? Research ethics is talks about researchers' responsibility to the person that is affected or involved in their report. And the next we're gonna talk about four principles of research ethics. The first is autonomy, the second is beneficial, and the third is non-maleficent, and the fourth is justice. The first, autonomy. Autonomy is free the participant to participate or not in the researcher study. And the second, beneficent. It is minimize the risk and maximize the possible of benefits. And it can be by give the participant souvenir or mini gift after the participant answered the questionnaire or interview. And the third is non-maleficent. In non-maleficent, there is obligation not to harm and must protect the participant. So, for example, the researchers didn't allow to meet embarrassment questionnaire for the participant. And the last is justice. Justice is prioritizing the needs of participant before the researcher is needed. For example, in the consent form, in informed consent, the researcher will explain first about the study and will give detailed information about the researcher before researcher receive the participant is information. The next is several terminologies in research ethics. So I will talk about five terminologies in research ethics that I know. The first is normalization, second is voluntary participant, and the third is no deception. The fourth is confidently, and the last is informed consent. So the first normalization, like I have mentioned before, which is to not to harm the participant, and the next is voluntary participation. So in the voluntary participation, so the researcher should ask first for the voluntary participant to willing to participate or not. So I ever experienced this. So in my class, my teacher suddenly asked the student to answer the questionnaire without asking or even tell the student if they didn't want to be participate. So I think this is wrong, and teacher should ask first about the permission with the student, even though it is their student, because permission is important in research. And the next is no deception. No deception, there is two. The first, passive deception, and the second is active deception. The first, the passive deception. The researcher deliberately doesn't tell the participant several information about the study, and the active deception is misunderstanding about the information of the study. So the The participant is misunderstanding about the researcher study. And the next is confidentially. So it is to keep and to save the participant's identity information, and can it can be by keep it anonymous. It can be by use initial if the researcher wants to talk about participant in the paper. And for example, we're gonna use Rory Gilmore in the paper. So the researcher should type RG, not the full name, but the initial only. And the last is informed consent. So before participants want to participate in researcher study, it is better for them to read and fill the informed consent and form, because it is important to tell the participants about the study and research identity. The next is example of ethical practices in qualitative and quantitative research. So the first is in qualitative research. In the qualitative research, usually the researchers use interview with the participants. So like I have mentioned before, the researchers should keep the privacy of the participant. So it's called confidentially. For example, when the researchers want to talk about the result of the interviewing with the participant in the paper, the researcher only need to put the initial of the researcher. It's like when I am the researcher and I want to talk about the result of interview with my participant, which the name is Mario Andra, I should put it only MA, not the real name, because it is it is can help to keep the participant information anonymous. And then in qualitative research, usually in qualitative research, the researchers use questionnaire to collect the finds or the finding of the study. And by the questionnaire, the researchers shouldn't force the participant to answer the question or questionnaire, which means the participant can reduce it. In this autonomy, free the participant to be participate or not in the researcher study, not to force them. The next is we're gonna talk about the example of unethical practices that should be avoided in research. So, the example of unethical practices in research is when researchers want to research a study, there will be hypotheses, and hypothesis is not always same or fit with the result of the finding they have collected. And in these ethical practices, the researchers can delete the data. It can be from the data from the questionnaire, from or maybe from the interviewing. So the researchers can delete the data which didn't suitable or match to their hypothesis or to make them correctly by their hypothesis. It is like manipulating data, and that is one of the examples of unethical practice that should be avoided. So in the last, we're gonna talk about informed consent and informed consent form. So this is essential because it's connected to the participant. And informed consent. Consent is to inform the participant about the researcher study. And informed consent form is informed about the participant's willingness to be participate on the researcher's study. And the next I'm gonna give example of informed consent and informed consent form. So that's all about today's topic, which is research ethics. Thank you for watching. Bye.